Welcome, everyone. This is Scott Strode with Blue Chips Global, and today's guest, John Perry, head coach of the U.S. Naval Academy. But first, I want to remind you the Blue Chips Interstate Team Shootout, high school shootout on June 13th, will be hosted by Blue Chips at Milan Park. If you need information, reach out to us immediately. We've already got 6 colleges confirmed to come and scout and recruit. And we've got 5 teams that's already 5 teams out of 16 that have already confirmed that they will be there again June 13th. Reach out to Isaiah Francis or myself, and we will get you registered, get you the registration links. But without further ado, welcome in, Coach. You were at the top of my list. I was just telling somebody a little bit ago. You were at the top of my list of folks that I wanted to have on here when I first started doing this and having guests on. And so I'm honored and pretty excited to have you on. And I had a lot of people when I told them that you were coming on. They were really, really excited to listen. So you're probably a bigger deal than you think you are, but it's great.
Well, it's good to be here, Scott, and I appreciate it. Hopefully I don't screw this up, and I'm able to provide some insight. But a guy from Milton, West Virginia, just honored to be here in this position and be able to serve in this role at Navy basketball.
Well, that's the good thing here. There is no screwing anything up. We just grip it and rip it. There's no that's the beauty of podcasts. So we have fun and just roll with it. So speaking of, and I think a lot of people, I think, have come to recognize your name, but a lot of people don't know that you're from West Virginia. And I've kind of, just this morning, enlightened a couple people on that, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that, So they knew your name, knew where you were at, and so I thought that was pretty interesting that a lot of people didn't know that. But, and then obviously that's one of the reasons I had you as a high priority, somebody I wanted you, wanted to be on this show. So, spinning off of that, let's talk about that. Your journey from Milton, West Virginia, to where you're at now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. So born and raised in Milton. Actually, I grew up on a cattle and tobacco farm, and which was about 10 miles outside of Milton, closer to Salt Rock, actually, West Virginia. So I'm the youngest of 4. My parents are the biggest influences in my life. Growing up on the farm, we did a lot of work. My dad was involved in basketball. He played at Marshall University when he was in college. And when I was growing up, my parents, they showed me what work ethic and caring for others look like on a daily basis. And those are 2 big lessons that I took away from them. And my mom was always my biggest fan and supporter. She used to call me coach when I was a player as a little kid, and always told me one day you're going to be a coach, and kind of worked out that way. And Dad was involved in he stayed involved in Marshall athletics, and he ran the student athlete program in the evenings, and so basically ran study hall and helped those guys just kind of grow into men, and helped them. Back then it was like, I can remember sitting beside him and he was teaching them how to balance a checkbook, for instance, right? Things that kids these days they don't know how to do that.
Right.
But I got to do my homework besides college athletes, and I remember the first time I got to go into a locker room. I was 6 years old, and Marshall was playing UT Chattanooga back when they were still in the Southern Conference, and Coach Huckabee was the head coach, and just being in that environment, listening to that pregame talk and feeling the energy and the emotion. I was a ball boy. I sat on the back of the goals, wiped up sweat. I just kind of fell in love with the game. And over the years, I've been coaching for 25 years now. I've grown exponentially through a bunch of different roles. I've learned about loyalty and patience, and it's prepared me for this position and this role that I'm honored to be in now. When I graduated from Cabell Midland, I had the opportunity to go walk on at East Tennessee State, and would have been a good Division III basketball player, but I wanted to try to go to the highest level.
Sure.
Because I knew eventually I wanted to get into coaching. And a guy by the name of Ed DeChellis, gave me an unbelievable opportunity that just changed the course of my life. And so went to East Tennessee and found a role and learned what a winning culture looks like. We ended up going to 2 NCAA tournaments when I was a graduate assistant there, and tried to kind of rebuild that thing a little bit, and just kind of saw the blueprint of how things work in college basketball and athletics, and how important the relationships are, and getting the right people on the bus in the program, to be able to be successful. And then after East Tennessee, Coach DeChellis hired me at Penn State, was a video operations guy, was a director of operations there, and then I left and took a job at Quincy University for a guy named Marty Bell, who was wonderful to myself and my wife Stacy, and brought us out there for 3 years, was his assistant coach, was his associate head coach, and learned a lot about leading and preparation and team culture from Marty, and at my time at Penn State. And I think, then I got the opportunity to come back to Navy and work for Ed again, and it was just, everything happened at the right time for my career and for Stacy's career. And so we've been in Annapolis now for 13 years. I was an assistant coach and associate head coach here for 12 years, which I think gave me a really deep understanding of the institution, the mission of the place, and what we're all about, which then led to my opportunity last year on April 2nd, whenever I was offered the head coaching position, which for me was a dream come true. I've had a coaching journey where I've held every position, which I think is really important, especially for young guys. It takes time. I was coaching for 24 years before I got the opportunity to be a head coach. There's some loyalty there with people that spend time with you, that kind of bring you along and mentor you, that you have to have, and you've got to have patience, and you've got to be a star in every role that you're in. And I was a player, and I got injured at East Tennessee and became a student assistant while I was injured, and then went back to being a player, and then was a graduate assistant, and then was a video guy, an operations guy, an assistant coach, an associate head coach, and now a head coach. And I think for me in this last year, what I've learned most about my experiences is the importance of doing all of those jobs and understanding what each job entails and how important those roles are, and then being able to get the right people in the program in those roles is really, really important. To continued success.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and this is one of my real beliefs with coaches is the coaches that have had the journey that you have, where they have hit every rung of the ladder, and especially if they've done every administrative job like you talked about. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers, but it seems to me like those folks have a higher success rate in coaching, whether it be football, baseball, basketball, whatever the sport may be. And it just comes down to one word, I think, and that's perspective. As far as understanding what everybody's role is around them, and not only that, then you understand as a head coach what you need to have around you. You know what I mean, from a personnel standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially at your level, you can only be so good by yourself. If you don't have good assistants and good administration and stuff around you, you're treading water pretty quickly. No pun intended. But it's so I think it's really, really interesting that you've had that journey, especially from player to you've hit literally every step. Not just player. Then I coach. Then I you've really hit every step to where, a ton of perspective and experience. So I have nothing but expectations of success for you here in the immediate future. Not to put any pressure on you.
No, there's no pressure. You just run towards that. That's the fun part. It's been a blessing. Being around college basketball, and I'm a team first guy. I always have been, and I just love the environment. And that's the thing that's most special, I think, about being a part of Navy basketball is it's not just about basketball. You know, there's a larger purpose here, and we're serving a greater mission.
Sure.
And we've got wonderful, wonderful people, you know, here in Annapolis and on the yard.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, and that's a message that obviously needs to be put out there anytime we get a chance. So, speaking of that, tell us a little bit. What do we need to know? I mean, other than the obvious or what people think they know, tell us what we need to know about the Navy program. You and I don't know when it was, a year or two ago or whenever, we had some, and you filled me in on some, I don't know if we had a phone call or if we had, I don't know what it was, but some things about how that program operates that I didn't have any idea. I thought was really, really interesting, though. But just tell us some things about that program in specifically that you think people should know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. It's a great question. You know, and there's a lot to it. I didn't know whenever I got here 13 years ago everything that goes on here. And I tell people all the time, Scott, that when Coach D offered me the job and Stacy and I moved to Annapolis, I actually needed the Naval Academy more than it needed me back then, because I've just grown exponentially as a Christian, as a husband, as a father now, as a basketball coach. And because of the leadership environment, the experiences here, and most importantly, that's created by the people and the mission, because we are all aligned with a common purpose. You know, and it's about leadership development, and within our program, there's a really strong brotherhood, and it's an elite basketball environment. You know, we've been successful, but I think we've got really motivated young guys that are about the right things, that are selfless, you know, and want to grow when they get here with us for 4 or 5 years and develop into future leaders of character and be commissioned as officers in the United States Navy or the Marine Corps. You know, there's 25 diverse communities that you can join through the Navy and through the Marine Corps. And, you know, that's part of our job as coaches to, one, learn about that and then be able to speak to the future prospects and their families and see if that's something that's, important to them. You know, elite academics. I mean, we're the #1 public school in the country. So you're not going to find a better education. The military obligations are professional development. We're all going to have jobs and responsibilities one day as parents and husbands and fathers and then obviously with whatever role we choose. And there's got to be some discipline with that. There's got to be some organization, and there's got to be some structure with your daily life to be able to be successful and be able to make an impact. And we're teaching our young guys and girls here at the Naval Academy right away how to do that on a daily basis. And that's part of the leadership development, which I think is second to none in the country, with what we do over 48 months with these guys that join our program. And then the other part is the high level basketball. We try to use basketball and we leverage the game to develop their leadership ability. And because we know that when they graduate and they're commissioned as officers, United States Navy or Marine Corps, they're going to go out and they're going to have really important jobs. And it's going to be, and they have to have an understanding of who they are as a leader. They have to see what right kind of looks like, and they get to do that on a daily basis here. That's from the coaches, but more importantly, it's from the people in the academic side of the Naval Academy, and it's also from the people that are here in the military side of it. So all three sides are helping these young guys grow on a daily basis. Another unique aspect of what we do with Navy basketball is the summer training, and that's where they really start to develop and understand the career opportunities for the 5 years that they get the opportunity to serve their country upon graduation. And that's with ships above the surface, that's submarines, that's naval aviation, that's the Marine Corps, that's the National Security Agency. I mean, there's a lot of really neat experiences that these young guys do. You can think about driver's ed in high school, right? Well, we do driver's ed for ships and planes here. So everybody gets to learn how to drive a ship, and everybody gets to learn how to sail a boat, and everybody gets to learn how to fly a plane, which is pretty neat. And if you don't decide to do one of those things, it's still an opportunity for you to learn and grow and develop as a person and as a leader through those shared experiences, right, with your classmates. So I think the environment, it really focuses on accountability and discipline and resilience every day. And I think if you have some accountability and you're a disciplined person and you are really resilient, good things are going to happen for you in life. And you're going to be able to have an impact on other people. And those are the things that kind of bind us together here at the Naval Academy and build our brotherhood, which is a real experience, because you have the guys that are to your left and right that are going through this on a daily basis, but you also have the alumni that have gone through these same experiences where, at East Tennessee State, it wasn't necessarily like that. We were all going through different things.
Right.
Everybody goes through the same thing here. And I think when you share those experiences, it just gets you prepared to lead, it gets you ready to serve, and you're built to win in life, not just in basketball, but in life. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's great points about it, especially with, I never really thought about that way, where everybody's going to the exact same experience. There's there's really no differentiation there between what one guy's experiencing versus the other. So it's kind of the great equalizer, and that's when we talked. I remember a while back we talked. You were telling me how you kind of do a I don't even know remember how you described it or what you called it, but kind of a freshman program where guys come in and they kind of have this this stepping stone to go into the varsity program if they're not ready quite yet. They go in and play as a group as first year players. Is that an accurate description, or is that
Yeah, they do.
How do you handle that?
They do a thing called plebe summer here. That's kind of their initiation to the Naval Academy. So it's a leadership experience, and everyone goes through it, whether you're a varsity athlete or not. Everybody goes through it, which I think is great. It's a really wonderful thing, and it's their first kind of everyone's first kind of touch point, to the Naval Academy experience.
Gotcha. Kind of playing off of what we talked about there. What does it take? What does it really take to be an athlete there? And I'm just generalization and athlete, but you can even drill it down farther to basketball player. What kind of kid are you looking for? Outside of the obvious, disciplined and those types of things. But what kind of player does it take to play there? What are some some qualities that you look for that not that you just look for, that kids have to have to be there?
Yeah.
They're not they're not luxuries like they would be somewhere else, but kids they have to have these qualities to be a part of your program and part of the academy.
Yeah, it's I think they're qualities of just successful people, or people that want to make an impact in life, and that's being team first. That's trying to serve other people. One of our maxims in our program is to use the golden rule. And I think that's a form of leadership, and being able to be trusted to do the right thing and always do your best and looking to do good for others, I think is really important. It's just it's kind of what we're looking for, and the process is we want people with really good work ethic, and they're always going to try to work hard and do their jobs that we ask them to do on a daily basis, and put the team first in all that they do.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great summary. What are the let's just talk about expanding on that. Expectations, requirements. When kid, let's just take the first week. What's a kid have to do? To just to gain entry into the academy. I mean, academically, what kind of levels and expectations are there? Requirements. Where does that set with? Obviously, it's pretty high standard there to. Academically, I know that just from people that I know that have had opportunities there. So where does that kind of sit with
Yeah.
that academy right now?
So it's I mean, obviously being in the top public school in the country, right, and having really good leadership program and first class, athletics experience for everyone that play varsity sports. It's a challenging process, to gain admission. You have to do well academically, in high school. That's just really important. You've got to do well on the ACT or SAT. You've got to test well. You've got to score well. You've got to be a guy that tries to give his time to others and do some service and some community service and give back. I think that is really important. And then from the athletic side of it, you've got to be a pretty good player with some potential, right, and be able to play at this level because it's competitive, and all the sports. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. I mean, it's you've got to have some love for the game, and you've got to be willing to sacrifice your time and focus on the right things to be really good at this level.
Yeah, for sure. With that being said, where do you recruit those kids? Where do those kids come from? Are they kids you get leads on from high school coaches? Is it kids you seek out during AAU season? Is it just how does that happen? I mean, I'm just thinking it's probably not the typical process that a lot of schools have, but or is it? What's different? What's the same? I guess.
Yeah, it's. Navy is a national brand, and we're able to recruit nationally, and so we're getting to meet people all over the country. Whether that's through summer basketball or high school basketball programs, relationships with people. I think everyone is helpful in this and helps us in this recruiting process. Because it's a special place. It's a certain fit. It takes certain type of talent. Academically, athletically, character-wise, we're looking for certain type of young guys. That have good morals and values, and that's the fun part of it, is just getting to have all the relationships, conversations, and trying to figure out if this is the right fit.
So, drilling that down just a little bit farther, system-wise, with everybody's got a philosophy or a system, offensively, defensively, transition, whatever the case may be. What kind of what's the skill set of a player that Coach Perry is going to recruit? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and that kind of changes year to year. I mean, we adapt to the players that we have, and as they come in, we hope that they're getting better, and we're helping them improve in the development piece. But we focus on defending and rebounding and taking care of the basketball. Those are our big three pillars for basketball. On the basketball side of things, so defensively, we want to be really good. We were top 10 in the country last year in defense, and so I think that speaks to kind of what we kind of hang our hat on. And rebounding the basketball, we've been first in the Patriot League for a long time, both on the defensive side and offensive side of the ball. So, we want to rebound a little bit. And then taking care of the ball for me offensively is a lot of things. You've got to be skilled, you've got to be smart. You have to have some vision and be a good passer and understand where the ball needs to go, when it needs to get there, how to get open. And we're always harping on, taking really good care of the ball. We don't want to give it to the bad guys. And I think for us, if we focus on those three things, defend and rebound, taking care of the basketball, we can get more possessions than our opponents, and then that gives us an opportunity to win the game. There's games this past year we played fast, and there's games that we slowed it up, and there's a lot of ways to win a basketball game that I've learned during my time playing and coaching, and so I think that adaptability is really key. And we've got to have coaches and players, myself included. We all have to be able to adapt because there's going to be friction in games all the time, and you have to have some flexibility, and you have to work together. We use the word collaboration a lot. Our players and coaches, I think, work really well together, especially in pressure situations in games. There was a lot of times this last year that, I was asking for feedback from players and or coaches, and we're all working together because I don't have all the answers all the time. What I need to do is be able to have some humility and ask the right questions so that we can all work together to figure out those problems. And that's the cool thing for me, being in this role, is trying to be able to facilitate that in those conversations and those discussions, whether it's 2 days before or the day of in a shoot around or even in a timeout. Like, hey, what we thought's working was going to work is not working. All right, what can we do? Perfect. And have those conversations. And I think hopefully those guys are learning lessons that they're going to use later down the road whenever they get to be, serving their country.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure you'll agree, when I've talked to, not that I'm a coaching guru or anything, but I think the thing that we fail to remember is, the value in players isn't so much being able to adapt to a system and run it to its perfection, but rather they're able to produce something from it when it breaks down. They're able to ad lib or adjust when that breakdown happens, because, and I'm sure you can agree, probably 60, 70, 80% of the times you come down and you start a set, something happens to break that down, to interrupt whatever. And it's really, how players play off of that, is their value, in the offense, rather than just, being able to come off of a down screen, curl and catch the ball and shoot it. There's a trillion kids out there that can do that, but it's much more, what happens when they switch on that screen, and then what do that's such the value. And I think, kind of part B of that is, and the other thing we get lost in, because there's, and I don't know why, there's so much out there about, people talk so much, and I don't remember this, and you probably don't either 30 years ago, but there's so much about the system. This is the system this coach runs, and it's these offensive sets and this and that and the other, and it's like, eventually you have to impose your will on your opponent. Like, it really put system, put offense, put sets, it's still going to come down to, do you have 2 or 3 guys that can impose their will on their defender? And that's simply how games are won, And I think we fail to understand that part, as parents of players, as fans of Navy or WVU or Marshall or whatever. That's simply what it comes down to. That's just sports in general, So it's what the Navy does when it gets into a skirmish. They impose their will. I mean, that's just it's just the way the world works. So
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that competitiveness, grit, toughness.
Yep.
I don't know what you want to call it. Will to win, right? You're gonna outlast, right? A tenacity is really important to be successful, not just on the court but off the court.
Yeah.
Life is hard. Life is challenging, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But you gotta get back up, and you gotta keep fighting, and you gotta keep punching and swinging, and I think that's the cool part is try to help these young guys figure out how are they going to handle some adversity and some pressure in their life, and it all falls back on habits, just daily habits, and how you're taking care of yourself, how you treat other people. Building some confidence, and nothing, in my opinion, nothing works more than work. You just have to put the work in. As we call it here, the reps and sets. It's all about reps and sets in life. I don't care if you're in the classroom or you're on the court or you're sitting on a tractor or you're taking infield and field and grounders. Like, you pick it. It's the reps and sets.
Yeah.
Right? It's sitting down to take a test and not doing real well. All right, well, what's the reason I didn't do well? I got to go back and I've got to self-evaluate and figure out, all right, how am I going to do better? And the next time I'm going to try to do my best because I didn't do my best last time, and I want to autograph my work with excellence. My dad used to say that all the time, and I think it was a Vince Lombardi thing, but like everything you do, you're signing your name on it. It's got to be important to you, and give it your best, right? And if you can build that quality in yourself, then I think good things are going to happen for you down the road in life. But autograph your work with excellence. And to your point, there's no I don't have a system. I'm not saying I just want to get the best players we can, and then that's the fun part every year. And we'll start working on it in the summer. It's like, all right, next year's team, what do we need to do to be successful, both offensively and defensively? And you can go back through and you can look at the years here. I mean, offensively, we've done a lot of different things. Some years it wasn't the right stuff, and you've got to look yourself in the mirror. And other years it worked out pretty well. But that's where we got to all put our head together and kind of work and figure out, all right, what's going to work best for us to be able to score the basketball. And defensively, how are we going to guard ball screens this year? Or are we going to play faster? Are we going to press more? Are we not going to press more? Are we going to try to pack it in and play half-court defense? And that's the fun part of it.
I love that. I really wish even high school coaches would employ more of that. That type of thinking is because they have less control over who's coming through their program, and they need to really have more of that adaptability to adjust to who's coming through their program, rather than try to constantly fit them through an exact mold them into an exact shape. And obviously, your success, your season this year proves that you can just kind of roll with what comes in the gym and figure it out. And I think that's something that people need to really kind of maybe take notice of, where we don't have to have this rigid, like I can't have this player because, and I hear that, and I get that part of it too. At the same time, when smaller colleges will reach out to me and say, hey, can you help me out with finding some guys? And I'll send them guys. Well, I love that kid, but he doesn't really fit what we do. And I get it if he's just a bum, but when it's a kid that's just like, there's a lot of times it's just like, I think he's too talented for you not to have, even if he doesn't shoot the three above 40%, like you might want to you probably want to rethink it, and but to each his own. And but I can't tell you how much I admire that that take and that philosophy on just kind of, because it's just kind of not the norm right now, and in college basketball and high school for that matter. But one last thing, Coach, and we'll cut you loose. And I've asked everybody this, and I think it's an interesting question, and there's no right or wrong answer. What do you think the direction of basketball is, especially college basketball, with this huge influx of international players? Are we kind of seeing a international takeover? I mean, LSU is going to sign nothing but international players. They want no American players. I mean, are we seeing a kind of takeover, as we've kind of seen somewhat in baseball over the years, where a lot of roster spots are taken by guys from other countries? I mean, what's your thoughts?
That's a great question. I wish I had an answer for you, and I really don't. I mean, we're gonna continue to do what we do here with Navy basketball, and we're gonna recruit within the country, and we're gonna find young guys, who are gonna put the name on the front, and make that be the most important instead of the name on the back, and try to teach them about life and leadership and service to others, and then that's just kind of where we're focused.
Good answer. Perfect answer. Well, Coach, we'll wrap this up. I know you got to run, and you're on a much stricter schedule than I, so we'll cut you loose, and I appreciate it. I'm so grateful that you took the time to come on with me, and a lot of other folks will be as well. So, best of luck to you. Let's stay in touch and have you back again.
Thanks so much, Scott. I really appreciate it, and just keep doing what you're doing, and connecting people. I think that's really important, right? Is this relationship piece and trying to establish relationships across the country and stuff. So thanks so much for all you're doing.
Absolutely, I'm a fan for life, and we'll keep track of you here in the next several months.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.